When my landlord said I had 24 hours to leave, I reminded him who he was really messing with. I've lived in my apartment for 6 years, raised my daughter here since she was 2, paid rent on time every single month, never once late. Then 3 months ago, a new property management company took over the building. The new landlord, a man named Victor Crane, showed up at my door the first week wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly salary. He looked around my apartment with this expression of barely concealed disgust. He said he was planning major renovations and needed to discuss my lease. I told him I had 8 months left on my current agreement. He smiled and said leases can be renegotiated. Then he handed me a new contract. The rent had been raised from $1,400 to $3,200 a month, more than double. I told him that was illegal without proper notice. He shrugged and said I could take it or leave it. When I refused to sign, he started making my life hell. Maintenance requests went unanswered. The heat got shut off for 3 days in December. My mailbox was mysteriously removed. I documented everything. Last week, Victor showed up at my door again with 2 men I didn't recognize. He handed me an eviction notice claiming I had violated my lease by having an unauthorized pet. I don't have a pet. I've never had a pet. My daughter is allergic to animal fur. I told him this was fabricated and I wouldn't be leaving. He leaned in close and said, "You have 24 hours to vacate or I'll have you removed by force. I don't care what you think your rights are. This building is mine now, and I decide who stays." One of the men behind him cracked his knuckles like we were in some kind of movie. I looked at Victor, at his smug expression, at his expensive watch, and I felt this cold calm wash over me. "You have no idea who you're messing with," I said. He laughed. "Let me guess. You know a lawyer?" I smiled. "No, I am a lawyer." His face flickered for just a second. I said I specialize in tenant rights and housing discrimination. I've won 43 cases against landlords exactly like you, and I've been documenting every single violation since the day you took over this building. I spent that night not packing, but preparing. I pulled out the folder I'd been building for 3 months. Every unanswered maintenance request with timestamps. Photos of the broken heating system during the December freeze. Statements from 6 other tenants who'd received the same illegal rent increases. Recordings of Victor threatening an elderly woman on the 4th floor. Screenshots of the property management company's reviews showing a pattern of harassment across 12 buildings. I also found something Victor clearly didn't want anyone to know. His company had been cited by the City Housing Authority 3 times in the past 2 years. The 3rd violation should have triggered a mandatory review of all his properties. That review never happened. I made a few phone calls to old colleagues. By midnight, I had the direct number of a housing court judge who'd been trying to build a case against predatory landlords in our district. By 2 a.m., I had a meeting scheduled with the local news consumer protection reporter. Victor wanted to play games. I was about to change the rules entirely. The next morning, Victor showed up at exactly 9 a.m. with his 2 associates and a locksmith. He knocked on my door with this satisfied grin, clearly expecting to find me packed and defeated. I opened the door wearing my best courtroom blazer. Behind me stood my colleague from the Tenant Advocacy Center, a videographer from the news station, and a housing inspector I'd called in a favor with. Victor's grin disappeared. "What is this?" I handed him a stack of papers. "This is a temporary restraining order preventing you from evicting any tenant in this building until a full investigation is completed. This is a formal complaint filed with the City Housing Authority triggering that mandatory review you somehow avoided. And this is a civil lawsuit on behalf of myself and 11 other tenants for harassment, illegal rent increases, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." The videographer was recording everything. Victor's face went from confused to furious to something that looked like fear. He turned to his lawyer on speakerphone, who I could hear saying, "Don't say another word." The housing inspector walked past him into the building to begin her evaluation. Victor tried to recover. He straightened his tie and said, "This is all a misunderstanding. I'm sure we can work something out." The news reporter stepped forward with her microphone. "Mr. Crane, is it true you've illegally evicted over 40 families across your properties in the past 18 months? Victor's mouth opened and closed. "I said you wanted me out in 24 hours. I decided to use those 24 hours productively." The inspector came back within an hour with a preliminary report citing 19 code violations in our building alone. The news story aired that evening. By the next morning, the city had launched a full investigation into Victor's entire property portfolio. 3 other tenants came forward with recordings of threats. A city councilwoman called for an emergency hearing. Victor's company tried to issue a statement claiming they were cooperating fully, but the damage was done. His investors started pulling out. His other properties faced immediate inspections. The civil lawsuit grew from 11 plaintiffs to 34. Victor Crane lost his property license 6 months later, and I'm still living in my apartment with rent frozen at the original $1,400.